All right, so welcome to probably the second episode of what I'm now calling Tide Pods. And I have with me Garrison. And Garrison, I'm sure you can introduce yourself, but Garrison and I met at the very last NATM. So that's the trailer conference. And it's super funny because Garrison seems to be like the complete opposite of me in terms of entrepreneurial
We've had opposite
journey.
lives, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, Garrison Snell was formerly of the music industry, the entertainment industry, now of the manufacturing and industrial industries, I guess. And I run a family office. So we own a bunch of manufacturing and industrial companies. I sold a music company to get me there. And we basically switched roles, didn't we?
Yeah, because I started out in the trailer industry, and I'm still part of the trailer industry, but now I'm moving into the entertainment industry, running an artist group.
Yeah,
whereas for you started in music, and then now you're in trailer and manufacturing.
Completely, I got the heck out of music, man. So yeah, have fun for me in it, please. Have fun for me.
Why are you saying that? What's wrong with the music industry?
It's I just have a hard time with it, man. I mean, so do you know much about the agency that we started? I told you the story.
Tell me about like what you did.
Okay. So we had a marketing agency. Primarily, we were running digital advertisements for country artists, Christian artists, pop artists, and so I mean, they'd have a release. They'd come to us and say, "Here's an ad budget. Handle our Facebook ad placement, our Google ad placement, YouTube ad placement. Try to generate traffic onto the release, as well as whatever the merchandise associated with the release was, or if there was a tour, the tickets." And it's an industry where, in my experience, my very limited experience with it, it's an industry that if you're not cool, you have a hard time with it. And I can't say that I was.
I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
And it's not so much that there's a premium for working with artists. There's a discount for getting to work with artists. So, I mean, the artist clients that we had, it was to do the same work for a brand, you'd be paid 10 times that. We had one artist, very popular, lives in Nashville and LA, that we did a release for, that threw a fit over $3,500 a month doing the same work for a large skincare brand. They paid us easily $35,000 a month in a long-term contract. And it wasn't, the rationale was, well, you can use me as a reference, or you can put me on the website as someone you've worked with. And I'm like, it doesn't sell.
That doesn't pay the bills.
No, I'm literally just
Right.
selling to other people like you who are saying the same thing. And I had a hard time with it. But funnily enough, a lot of the folks who I worked with in music have contributed capital to the acquisitions we've made outside of music.
No way. I didn't know that.
Yeah, quite a bit. So we've acquired now about $30 million worth of industrial companies, and about 15% of that have been folks from the music industry contributing that money to the deals.
Really?
Yeah.
I would not expect that, because
publishers, artists, booking agents.
From what I've kind of understood, a lot of the very well established professionals in the music space, they like to diversify their monies, because entertainment is very, very, I would say, it's inconsistent. It's not only inconsistent, but it's also unreliable, because you never know, tomorrow you can be irrelevant.
Yeah, correct.
Right. And I think that's the scary part about the entertainment business.
It is. And so many of the artists that I know, and then their managers, they sell a song catalog or they make some money, and they say, okay, I got to put this somewhere else. I just had a conversation last week with a guy who signed to Sony Nashville. He was, I think, on The Voice, and he told me he had the largest advance that Sony Nashville has ever given an artist.
Wow.
And it was significant. And he called me through a friend of mine and said, hey, where do I put this money? How do I invest this? Where do I put it? It's not in music. And we had some conversations about different places he could contribute it and ways he could do it. But
so I guess that's a lesson to artists. Like, once you make money, put it in some places.
The theme seems to be, once a creator makes money, significant money, there is some intelligence, in my opinion, in finding a place elsewhere to place it. And their managers, the good managers that I know, seem to encourage them to do so. And I mean, I'm in a deal right now with an artist and his manager and about 25 other guys.
So you're still in the music industry still?
Not exactly. So I have a lot of friends there.
Okay.
And when they do deals, they invite me into it. And when I do deals, I invite them into it.
So it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to sell them either anymore. Like, we're just friends. You know? So I'm not trying to sell them to buy advertising services or whatever. But this deal we've bought a bunch of 14,000 barrels of bourbon from a bourbon distributor or a bourbon brand distiller in Kentucky. And for basically we have a locked in price on those barrels for 4 years. We'll hold them. And then the contracts will be sold for about 3 times what we bought them for.
Wow.
And it's
a 3X investment on 14,000 barrels.
Yeah. It's about a $15 million total investment. And it's the way it's a little complicated, but basically the way it works is you're buying supply that won't come to fruition until 4 years later. And the bet is that there's still going to be a lack of supply of a certain type of spirit, and that there are going to be plenty of brands out there who just need the juice. And which it's true. It's a very common thing. You wholesale this stuff.
I mean, it just sounds like you have a lot of investments in a lot of different areas.
I do have that one.
So what's like, how are you able to do that? Because I feel like a lot of people, when they invest, they feel like they need to be the expert on something before they invest. So how are you investing in so many different areas and also being successful? Because you were talking to me about like a recent acquisition, which was super lucrative based on what you were telling me. So like, how are you able to like go in so many different places and be successful at the same time?
Oh, it's a good question. Let me think about that. That's the best way to describe it. I think the key to what we've done well so far has been having a very strong philosophy, a framework by which we make decisions, and sticking to that. And so I'll talk a little bit about it. There's a book from the early 1900s called The Intelligent Investor. It was written by a guy named Benjamin Graham. He's a Jewish guy who immigrated to the U.S. His parents lost everything in the stock market, and he sought to define investing in a way that would always protect your investment. Basically, he said anything that he defined investing as it must provide the safety of principal and it must provide an adequate cash return. Anything else is speculation, and the safety of principal being the key piece of that. And so he's called the father of value investing. Warren Buffett was his student of his at Columbia University.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Benjamin Graham is the consummate father of value investing. Wrote The Intelligent Investor. He wrote Security Analysis and many other books. And that's the philosophy we follow. We look at everything and go, can I see logically, durably that this thing I'm going to put money into, it'd be very, very unlikely that it'll ever permanently lose its value. And does it promise does it promise the safety of that principle? Promise being the key word. And then am I happy? Is there an adequate return? It doesn't have to be a 10x return, but I mean, on our manufacturing facilities, we earn about 20% on what we've invested every year. 20%. Yeah.
That's a huge.
It's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, I would love to compound 20% for the rest of my life.
Exactly.
Like that would be great. You know? So, I mean, I came up, and you did as well in the last 15 years or so, investing was venture capital.
Right.
It was put it into a tech company, you're going to get a 10x or 100x return, whatever it is. And it's just a lot older than that.
Right. And even angel investing, where there's just so much risk, which is why I'm kind of boggled at like these different investments that you're making, even though they're at a much larger scale, how they're producing such consistent returns.
I mean, they're old businesses, right? I mean, one business I own is 112 years old. It's like it literally went through the Great Depression. And so, I mean, I don't know. And
are you getting lucky as far as finding and having conversations with them when they're ready to sell? Because like normally when you hold on to a business that long, you want to keep on holding on, right? They don't normally want to let go. So how are you even coming to these opportunities? It's
a good question. They are usually in some sort of life situation or dire straits situation with their health. In many cases, they've gone through 3 or 4 generations already, and there's just no one who wants the business. So you've got a founder, or I've bought plenty of 3rd generation businesses who they've run it okay, and the kids have gone on and done something else.
Research shows that 3rd generation, anything past 3rd generation, I think there's only like a 5% success rate or some stupid low number like that after 3 generations.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just not good. I mean, in many cases, the kids just have no interest. In many cases, also the guy running it previously didn't do a great job. But you got to look for like what are the fundamentals of the business. Like there are things about each of the ones we bought that make them really strong businesses. They are not speculative. I'm buying them for well less than what they earn and what their asset value is. But I had to look at a lot of them. I mean, I've bought 5 in the last 4 years, and we've looked at about 400. So, I mean, it's a lot of businesses, and many of them are crap. Many of them are terrible.
But are they profitable?
Yeah, so ours are not terrible. Ours are great, but yeah, some of them are profitable. But
so you're just able to elevate it because people. It sounds like after the 3rd generation, they just lack the passion and care. So you bring that back in. Right?
Yeah, that is quite a lot of it, actually. I mean, in the case of New Deal, our trailer business, we make trailer parts. We've talked about it. They were actively turning away business. So, like, the owner said, "I'm going to do this much in sales a year,
and I'm happy with that,
and I'm happy." And he was actively turning it away, which he didn't realize was like that's very detrimental to his sales efforts in the future. Like, I mean. It just
it's
was
demotivating too.
Yeah. And the employees were like just ho-humming along, and there was no spirit in the place.
So yeah, I'm actually curious. Is New Deal a large percent of your time invested, or are you
not really? Yeah.
So you just kind of sparsely, populate your attention and your time and energy in all the different businesses within your family office?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, year to year, most of my time is spent in the acquisitions. It's finding, evaluating, and
you're doing the fun stuff.
Yeah, I enjoy it a lot. Yeah,
I would love to do that. I'm not there yet.
Well, the truth is, I've reserved that for me explicitly. Like, I've basically given Natalie and the rest of my team the other functions.
Invite me in some of those deals, though.
Oh, I mean, dude, I absolutely will, because we have a group of about 30 LPs that contribute between 10,000 and 200,000 per person into our deals.
That's very, very small amounts.
I know it is. And it's
so that's like not a very high.
It's very doable. I'll make sure you know about it. Yeah.
100%.
But the one we just closed 2 days ago, we raised 2.4 and from a group of guys, men and women, and it was a total of 18 million. So,
wow.
So not all that much relative to what the acquisition price was.
So a lot of my viewers are on the younger end of the spectrum, from 15 to 24. So let's dumb down this conversation a little bit.
We'll do it.
When it comes down to, I want to talk a little bit about inflation, right? With inflation, I've talked to some of my viewers a little bit about how, every single year, the value of money actually drops. Yep. That's what inflation is. Yeah. So if you keep your money in the bank, you're actually losing money.
Yep.
Right. And so what would you say is the most intelligent thing for people who are kind of just coming either in school still or coming out of school to help deal with this inflation every single year, especially with how inflation rates are right now? What would your advice be to them?
I have a really boring suggestion, but I have 2 suggestions. Okay. The key to beating inflation is the same key that every society has to beat inflation. So, okay, let me back up a little bit. If America and its corporate earnings grow at a rate that's faster than inflation every year, measured over a 10-year period, we're growing. We're not having a recession, right? We're growing. Right. The only way to track with that is to index your money against all of those other businesses. And so what do? There's products out there. The S&P 500 index fund is a very basic product, and you can put $100 into it, and it will track along with America's best businesses. And over the course of time, you will do exactly as well as America's best businesses do.
That's a good way to look at that.
That is precisely what it is.
Okay.
It is from an investment standpoint, not debt. From an equity investment stock market standpoint, it's the gold standard for the safest vehicle that you can put your money into. And as long as you're willing to be patient, you will compound that money at about 6% a year over the course of your life. That's what history's shown us over the last 100 years or so. The other way to combat inflation is to lend your money to people or institutions at a rate higher than inflation. So if I can lend my friend $1,000 at 6%, and inflation's 2%, I've beat it. Do you see what I'm saying? Essentially, if you go and you buy, let's say you open a Fidelity account or an E-Trade account and you put $1,000 into it, you can find the S&P 500 Vanguard Index Fund. It's from Vanguard, which is a very low-cost provider of these funds. And you put it in that, you'll pay very, very little for it. I think it's 0.02%. I don't remember what the key is. It's very, very low on your assets under management. and you'll compound at pretty much exactly what America's businesses are going to grow at for the rest of America.
So do you think that like, a student that has, a few $100s in their bank account, they can do this?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, and if they're patient and they're live at or below their means and they put money away into that starting it as early as they can, you cannot help but become extraordinarily wealthy. I mean, it will take some time, but I would be surprised if you take someone who contributes $1,000 a year for the first 20 years of their life compounding, they'll probably end up with close to 100 grand by the time they're done with that 2-decade period. I mean, it's pretty absurd. If you've never run a compounding, and it's easy. Like I could explain how to do it. Take your phone calculator and put a number, $100, multiply it by 1.06. And then hit the equal sign 20 times. That's the number you'll have at the end of 20 years, and on 6% return. And that's what you'll get by being in the S&P 500 index fund.
So let's actually do that real quick.
Yeah, it's very simple.
Let's say you have $1,000 in your bank account, right? And the annual 6% increase compounded.
Yep, 1.06.
So that's multiplied by 1.06.
Hit
that's
it 20 times.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
Yeah, so that after 20 years, that original $1,000 is $3,200.
Right, and that's not even considering you putting anything
additional.
extra.
Hit it another 20 times.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
You see how fast it's jumping in the last 20 years? So if you graph it, the first little bit of a compounding graph is very slow. The second little bit ramps and it becomes exponential. It's exponential.
So you're looking at, let's say, $1,000 investment, just $1,000
over 40 years.
Over 40 years, that's
10 grand.
10x.
10 grand. It's 10x. Correct. And you're not doing anything special. So what you're doing is you're literally just forgetting it. You're just saying, by putting it in the index fund, you're betting on America's businesses continuing to do what they've done for the last couple hundred years.
And I think that one of the things that this generation lacks is everybody loves instant gratification nowadays, especially with our phones, social media, and whatnot. I feel like what we're losing is what I like to call distant gratification, right? And so would you say that has kind of played to your successes?
It has. Of all the value investors I've studied, the key among all of them is extreme patience. It is not something we talk a lot about. It's not very sexy, but it's an extraordinary discipline, and I'm still not great at it. But no, I have looked at hundreds of businesses that I thought were fantastic, but there was a piece or two that just didn't smell right, and I was like, I'm gonna do it. And being willing to say no and wait for the right hit, to wait for as Buffett says, wait for the fat pitch that comes in and hit it. You just got to wait. And the key is to wait and be learning every day, looking, digging, but not to delude yourself, not to like go, it looks okay. It looks pretty good. I can convince myself to do it.
Right.
You got to have that criteria that says, here is my criteria and I will not compromise on it. And we have a very strict criteria, and I'm comfortable looking at 400 businesses and choosing 4 or 5.
So what is one last thing that you feel like, if you can give one message to my viewers out there, what would you tell them?
As it pertains to investing?
As it pertains to just really anything. Like, you're successful in your own right. And I do have a lot of viewers who want to be entrepreneurs or just want to be successful in general. What would you say is some good advice for them?
The thing that's been the most impactful on my success so far has been my willingness to dig in very deep and learn very thoroughly the things I'm trying to do. So read, learn, and don't give up. Don't stop. The first time you read The Intelligent Investor or read the book, you're going to go, what the heck is this? Read it again and again and again. Read it 4 or 5 times and you will get it. And it's just, most people give up when it starts out a little hard. And I had to repeat 8th grade algebra. Like I'm not good at math, and I do finance for a living.
That's crazy.
So it's just because I've dug in and I've learned.
But another thing that I don't think that we mentioned is I'm 24 and you're 29.
29, yeah,
right.
Correct.
So we're both
very young.
It's not like it's not out of reality or out of grasp that a younger person could be successful.
100% not. I mean, I sold my first business when I was 24, and so that was when I sold the marketing company. And I just turned 29 2 months ago. But I think oh, thank you. Yeah. I think the differentiator between me and a lot of the folks I went to school with was I was willing to not give up after the first try, and learn. And there are great people out there that model this stuff. You just got to go find them and then dig
I'm
in.
actually curious, what was your first big break? Like my first big break obviously was TK Trailer Parts.
Yeah,
I started that business with $1,000
Yeah.
and nothing,
Yeah.
right? And that was how I came to what I have today in capital
No.
infusions and how I'm able to do that, right?
Yep.
What was your first, like, what happened?
I owe everything I have today to an old country artist named Ronnie Dunn of a band called Brooks and Dunn. When I was 19 and I went to Belmont University in Nashville, he hired me to run all his marketing, and I worked out of his house from the time I was 19 until just about before I graduated. And he let me learn digital marketing. He paid for the laptop I still use. He bought me.
No way.
Yeah, it's still used. It's about almost 10 years old at this point. It's awesome. It runs great. And he essentially financed my ability to learn how to do what I was doing. And build that marketing agency that I then sold. And so it was him.
Were you building your marketing agency whilst?
Yeah. So I learned a lot from him. He was kind of my first client, I guess you would say. And then he, in conversations, encouraged me to go out and do it myself.
Oh, that's so awesome to have somebody to encourage you to do that.
And I mean, he paid me well and gave me a good opportunity and bought me equipment and said, basically gave me 2 years to learn. Without that, I still probably could have figured it out, but not nearly as fast.
Great.
Anyways.
Well, that's all we have for the day, man. No, I really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me,
It's been a pleasure.
Good to see you, man.
Dude, good to see you too.
Me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is your episode for Tide Pods. Hope you enjoyed and look forward to the next few.